Okay, I've decided to do a quick video on a super stretchy bind off on my Kiss loom so that you can see how that works if you're doing this Celtic knot gloves pattern. And first of all, what you will need is a yarn needle. I like these with the bent tips. They're really good for getting in between the pins and the pegs on my Kiss loom. And scissors, and I'll use my knitting tool to get my stitch markers off to get started. So first of all, I finished up knitting the chart, and now I'm going to measure out enough yarn to do my bind off. I usually do on my small gauge loom, I do like 3.5 to 4 times the length of my, so I'm measuring across my row all the pegs that I've knitted on, and like I say, 3.5 or 4 times that length is a good amount of yarn. That'll give you some extra, but it makes it a little bit easier to finish up that way. Okay, so then I will thread that end that I just cut onto my into my yarn needle. And before I try to do the bind off, I will take my stitch markers off because they tend to get in the way a little bit. So I just have to lift each stitch up, take the stitch marker out from under, and then I still have some stitch markers on the pins behind, but I'm not going to worry about those. They won't get in my way, and they're kind of difficult to get out when you've still got the knitting on the loom. This is a really good bind off to use if you've done an E-wrap cast on, because it has the same, you don't end up with one end tighter than the other. They both tend to be kind of loose. All right, so this is a fairly easy process. I'm going to bring my yarn around, and I usually I wrap it around this pin on the end just so that I've got a little bit of slack yarn there. You're going to skip the first peg and go up under the stitch in the next peg. Then you go back to the peg that you just skipped and go down through the stitch. And that's the process all the way across. So again, I'm going to skip this next peg, go up through the next one, and back and down through the one before. So you always go 2 pegs ahead to go up, and 1 peg back to go down. And you just keep doing that all the way across. When you get to the corner, it's a little bit tricky. I mean, you just follow the same principle, 2 pegs ahead to go up, 1 peg back to go down. It's just when you're going around the corner, it's a little bit, you have to keep turning the loom. But that's how it works. I'm going to finish off camera, and I'll come back and show you the end. Okay, I'm close to the end of the row now, and there's something else I realized I wanted to show you. When you come back down, so here I've come down through this peg, now I'm going to go up this one 2 ahead, and when I go back to go down through the peg, there is, I'm trying to make sure there's good light here, there are actually 2 strands of yarn that you're going to have to catch. There's the stitch that's on the peg, and then there's the strand of yarn from the bind off that came underneath it. You want to make sure that your needle goes through both of those loops when you're doing the down part. So I go up through this one, I've made a second loop here, so I want to make sure that when I go down through, I catch the stitch from the peg as well as the new loop. And the other thing I notice is as I'm doing this bind off, sometimes my my yarn starts to get twisted. So one of the things I try to do is, as I'm doing each stitch, I try to turn the needle different directions, which helps to minimize that. But sometimes you'll just have to, if you notice the yarn is really getting twisted, you'll just have to sort of untwist it by twirling the needle around one way or the other, because that can make it difficult to do. All right, so I'm almost to the end here. So I'm going, this is my, I go up through my last stitch. I have to go back down through the one before, and then I'll go up through the last stitch a second time. And that's how we end that. And I'm just going to pull it more or less tight. Then comes the kind of scary part. You're just going to pull all of the stitches right off the loom, and you've got a nice edge there. Okay, and then I usually will actually do a knot here as well. So I'll just take my needle through that last stitch again, and then through that loop to make a good knot and tighten it up. So now you have a bind off that's similar tension to the cast on the other end. So now we have finished the knitting part. The next video, I'll show you how to do the seam and leave the thumb hole.